Damos ya paso a María Elena.
Right, we're going to move on now to María Elena Alliende, who's sitting on my left. And as I said at the beginning, she's responsible for the fertility program at the University of Los Andes in Santiago de Chile. She has many years of experience, firstly at the University of Chile and then at the Los Andes University. And she's going to talk about the Natural Fertility Awareness issue. I'm going to try to talk about our experience in this field at the University of Los Andes in Chile. Procef has the purpose of rescuing and promoting an in-depth and integral understanding of human love and sexuality in order to support personal development. We visualize our mission as something that is based on rescuing the personal value of the body by carrying out a responsible process of procreation. In a university context, what we try to do is take care of human procreation by adopting a systemic approach. So our team is multidisciplinary. In other words, what we have is a network, and we have doctors covering different kinds of specialties, as well as matrons and instructors and relational mediators and psychologists. And right now, we have 3 centers that are now operating at 3 socio-economic levels. This fertility awareness program started 35 years ago, and it has gradually evolved over the years. Initially, there was a center that depended on the Hospital of San Bernardo, and that's where only instruction was given with the standardized North American model by Creighton that uses mucus as an indicator. And then after that, that was 25 years ago, and when the University of Chile set up the University of the Andes, Professor Patricio Mena used a local model, which was also standardized, and this was developed in parallel to Creighton's model by a group that was supervised by this gentleman at the University of Chile. And this started in the 80s. I actually formed part of that group, in fact. And the model of the University of Chile was using mucus plus basal temperature. So modules were given. First, it was based on observation, and then you had to register, and then after that, finally, you had to use it. And what it did was contemplate instruction and medical interconsultation. And in the year 2002, Dr. Arastoa came back from the United States to join the program, and his intention was to reinstate the Creighton model. And he then started to work with a group of pedagogues, and what they did was adapt this model. They began this work in 2004, and that's when they started to apply this new model. This is how they restructured this. This was nearly 19 years ago, and the program focused on analyzing and studying the fertility process. So instead of using a modular approach, what they implemented was a global approach in the style or in the fashion of Creighton. So we eliminated basal temperature and only left that parameter for special situations. And well, it also became necessary to modify the type of registration system used. And considering the experience that we'd already had with the observation and registration model of the University of Chile, everything has been fine-tuned over the years, of course. And then, on the other hand, what we also did was simplify things by incorporating some points of observation and some points of registration too. Also reaching out to other spheres that had to do with behavioral patterns. And during this learning process, we also included psychoeducation, only in those cases in which it was necessary, together with coaching. And we always tried to develop a much more integral kind of approach. And since the university implemented this program, we've had more than 2,600 users registered. And on average, every month, we received 12 cases. 1/4 of them are readmissions. And when they are admitted for the first time, they do so because they want to become pregnant in 47% of the cases. And to avoid it, 36%. And, well, those people that just want to know more about fertility were 17%. And 1/3 of them mentioned that they had moral and religious reasons to do so. And there was a very early dropout rate. 1/3 of the patients of the cases that arrive are not even admitted. And of those that are admitted, half of them dropped out before they come back for the second time. And of the new cases that arrive, only 21% of them complete their instruction. So if we consider the number of those that are admitted, it would be 32%. Right, so in other words, it means that 1/3 of these women that come along are not admitted, and of those that are admitted, only 1/3 of them finish their instruction. We have 246 active users, and these are the ones that we are in contact with. So when they are admitted to prevent pregnancies, the method, when it's in our hands, has an efficacy of 96%. And it drops down to 94% due to involuntary errors in how it's applied. And this has to do with the learning and teaching process. And that appears in yellow. And then it drops down, effectivity drops down to 80%. If we consider those cases that consciously cover the conscious use of the technique. And this is a group that you can see in orange. As before, we had a model that did not use basal temperature. When it was adopted, when this model from the University of Chile was implemented, that did use that parameter, that did consider it in practice, well, it was not included. But in order to evaluate, what we did was show a study, and we detected the mucosal peak perfectly well in relation to ovulation that had been detected echographically, and it was assimilated to the hormonal parameters. But this was not the case with regard to the peaks in technical parameters. But I would also like to mention now, very quickly, I would like to mention some more technical issues that have to do with observation. What's this? Oh, sorry, I have got a bit of a problem here. No, it's back again. So what we said is that this featured inclusions, and that is cream categories, whenever there was no mucus. So before, at the end of the day after carrying out the observation, and we also had simplifications in place with minimalist criteria, and what we did was establish a classification, a dichotomic categorization of these sensations based on whether the patient was or was not lubricated. And we redefined the sensation without fully ruling out the sensation that had been described spontaneously. So what we did basically was objectivate everything. So likewise, what we also did was simplify the description of what had to do with the mucosal flow. And, well, this was based on whether there was transparency or not. And we excluded the color element. We also introduced more user-friendly acronyms, in other words, like initials and crosses. You can see the most fertile levels that are pointed out above. These were the daily summaries. And we use the same register card in order to facilitate the learning process and also to achieve a much more extended use of this as a diagnostic and monitoring tool for the therapy. And here we can see an overview of our registration card where you can see the area that was underscored. And on the other side of the card, we have an explanation. We printed a basic explanation on the reverse side. And then there's another important issue that has to do with having a very solid manual that serves to reinforce the educational and learning program. We've updated this document recently after a very lengthy teamwork process, and it's available on our website. You can see the website details there together with the registration cards. And very soon, this material would also be made available in English. And right now, this website is now currently undergoing a restructuring process. So, because what we want to do is integrate it into social media, which is another very outstanding element that we are currently working on or have started only a few weeks ago. So we used to have clinical record on paper, and nowadays we're working with electronic clinical files. So we are now recognizing the potential fertility on a daily basis of our patients means that we had to implement a very significant behavioral adjustment. And, well, this is a practice that has been subject to quite a lot of pressure, and it's required a very big effort. So we had to perform some re-engineering in order to develop more strengths. And this is why what we did was when people joined the program, we carried out an evaluation of the psychological well-being of the person, and another one on conjugal satisfaction or marital satisfaction. And this can point out possible weaknesses in the early stages. And if we consider that everything is all right, well, then this is referred to psychological evaluation. But if necessary, what you can do is carry out a brief period of psychoeducation, or you can refer this case to a specialist should it be outside the scope of the program. And due to the adaptation that has to be carried out, which is because of this high level of early dropouts, in order to improve compliance or adherence, what we've also done is incorporate a coaching system that runs in parallel to the instruction process that lasts 5 sessions. And what we do is use mediation techniques, relational mediation techniques. And what these techniques do is deliver a much better negotiation, communication, and also manages to solve conflicts. So this coaching is carried out by professionals, people that are experts in mediation and family affairs. And in only a few cases, if there's a conflict that requires a further intervention, what you do is resort to a mediation technique. But what we have seen is how the introduction of this coaching formula has increased in a statistically significant manner. It's increased adherence as well as the rate of complete instruction. And, well, this chart shows you how of those women that carry out their instruction, 100%, those that receive coaching practically are double compared to those that do not receive any coaching. And this morning there was a workshop on coaching measures where we could see all of these parameters in much greater detail. but to carry out a frequent evaluation of the circumstances and of the level of conjugal dialogue or marital dialogue, what we have here is a scale of desires and intentions, so that we can either promote or avoid pregnancies. And, well, this is something that has to be filled out by both spouses during the first week of each cycle. So what we have done then is standardize the evaluation of each associated pregnancy. And for that purpose, what we have used is a diagram and a code. I'm just going to show you a very generic list of both instruments. But what we believe is that one of the key issues that has to be clarified in a program that is vital for users and instructors is this reality. When you face this reality that is full of nuances, and what you need to know is express what's going on in a much more accurate manner, means that what we do is now teach and communicate much better things related to the efficacy of these methods. And what we saw by using the desire and intention scale, together with the standardization of the pregnancy evaluation, what we have seen is that we have an indirect search mechanism for pregnancies. And this, fundamentally, in the group of pregnancies that we considered that were associated with the conscious utilization of the period that is potentially more suitable. And well, this is something that we have seen in our studies and also has been reported in others. And recently, what we have developed, we've developed this app to facilitate the digital registration of this information. And what they do, the users feed in their observations, and automatically what you get is the symbol that corresponds to the potential fertility or potential infertility. And both, well, they can access information in the mirror mode, and it's also possible to register the desire and intention of becoming pregnant. And here it is also possible to detect if you did register the data retrospectively, which is a very interesting thing. And this intention could then be transferred to an Excel spreadsheet, which the instructor, and the doctor have access to. So the use of this app obviously requires an instruction process beforehand to recognize or to identify fertility. And well, thanks to all the experience we've accumulated, we can now update this app to improve the process. And well, if the instructor suddenly notices that it would be necessary to carry out a gynecological and obstetric consultation, we also have specialists that share the underlying anthropology, and they know how to use this fertility register as a diagnostic tool and also for monitoring purposes. And in certain instances, what you have to do is operate on the patient surgically. And in those cases in which there's infertility, well, what we try to do with them, we try to clarify the cause and, well, assisting in the procreation process without replacing it, but always within certain limits. And we also carry out research work, which is something you can see in a number of publications, in a number of papers. But one of the essential things in the case of our program has to do with the teaching aspect. Here we have, on a regular basis, the students of nursing, obstetrics, and medicine. So this is how we can teach them certain anthropological aspects as well as ideological issues in advance. And we've also received students of medicine from other Chilean universities and from some overseas institutions. As regards to postgrad, we've had family mediation students and some people studying psychology. And, well, doctors that are specialized in gynecology and obstetrics at the university should also attend the program. And not only that, but we also hold, we have a program, a training program for instructors. I think it's something like 2 to 5 that graduate every year. I've only got one more slide to go. But if you lose contact, well, it's very important to monitor each case. You can do so by telephone, by WhatsApp, and that's how you can see how things are evolving. And for instance, when one of the cases becomes pregnant, it's very pertinent to have a contact and to do follow-up to stimulate readmission. That is, on a weekly basis, we also hold clinical meetings. And we also have the pre- and postgrad students involved in the program. And sometimes they meet remotely. We have professionals from other parts of the country in different programs. And recently, this has become much more international by incorporating Spanish-speaking professionals. And, well, this is being done together with Navarre. This is being done once a month. And, well, these are opportunities that we've had in Chile. We've had international seminars in 2018 and 2019. And we've also written 2 chapters in one of the specialist books on gynecology and obstetrics. We've also had extension lectures for users. We also have had courses for pastoral agents, for priests, and for spouses. And we also have published bulletins. And we've seen how this model has become multidisciplinary by networking to better cover the integrality of human sexuality. So what you have to do is establish a diagnosis of the details of each case so that you can customize things and properly identify what you are admitting these people for. And, well, we also need to know how much is achieved through instruction, because there has to be some formula of getting to know these the causes of these associated pregnancies. It doesn't suffice to provide isolated instruction on biological issues, because what you have to do is escort these people, and they have to be provided with gynecological and obstetric support, and which has to be completely specialized. And what we also have to do is identify and provide early support to overcome psychiatric and psychological difficulties. And it's also equally important to provide professional support for this transition, which could be very hard and very difficult. But obviously, everything has to be subject to a very close monitoring act. And thank you very much.